Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Now, we're going to go to this Ulsterman story in just a minute, but let's just do the theoretical basis of a freeze on foreclosures. We need to address the very noxious, poisonous Austrian school idea that lurks underneath this the cult of the market and the demand for foreclosures fast. The idea, they say, these homes that are in foreclosure have got to be dumped on the market, and that's got to be worked out. And only when you have everybody foreclosed on that's going to be foreclosed on can the housing market revive. Well, this is obvious gibberish and chop logic, right? It's the old Austrian school idea, once again, that you've got to have a deflationary crash. Liquidate stocks, liquidate bonds, liquidate real estate, liquidate the farmer, liquidate labor, liquidate everybody, and then you'll have a recovery. You hope. Too bad if you died. And you hope. It never happened. This never happened in the 1930s. It's a complete myth. When you hear people saying the New Deal prolonged the Depression, prolonged it compared to what? Well, prolonged it compared to the wonderful recovery you would have had if you just had a deflationary crash in 1933 and liquidated everybody, then you would have had a recovery. Well, strangely enough, that didn't happen anywhere in the world. It never happened on land or sea or in outer space or underground. It just never happened. This is what Brüning was working with in Germany, right, saying the Depression has to burn itself out. Only when we reach a bottom can we expect a recovery. Yeah. Too bad if you died. And think about everything else that got burned out. Burned out in Germany, where the political system, a whole generation of people, the political parties, and then what followed, National Socialism and all the rest of it. We also have this crackpot, Joseph Schumpeter, the pseudo-economist, charlatan, fraud, talks about creative destruction. Creative destruction is just another version of the old let-it-alone liquidationism of Andrew Mellon, liquidate stocks, liquidate bonds, liquidate the farmer, liquidate real estate, liquidate labor, liquidate everybody, and I'll have money, and then I'll buy you up, and you'll be my slave. That's the subtext. We also have to remember, property rights are not absolute, not N-O-T, not absolute. They are conditioned by social responsibility. If you're an expert derivatives trader and you're living in a Stone Age society, you don't get to be rich. The idea that there's an intrinsic value of some kind of a skill that entitles you automatically to something, no. That's based on an entire division of labor. A whole level of the world economy is required. How can a barber in the United States used to be able to earn 2 or 3 times what a barber in the Middle East might earn? The skills are the same. How can you qualify for more? Well, because of the level of the economy as a whole. So remember, your property is not divine right. It's been essentially acquired by you in a social context to which you have responsibility. So a textile mill is not yours to burn down or blow up or shut down, but it brings with it social responsibility. And the responsibility is to people, not to markets. That's the big obfuscation, right? They say we have to help the market. Well, who's the market? The market turns out to be Angelo Mazzillo and Lloyd Blankfein and Jamie Dimon and Pandit the Bandit and this new guy, what's his name, Moynihan at the Bank of America. That's the market. We can list about 50 names at most, and they're the market. The ones that really count, probably less than a dozen. So, no. The policy package is therefore this. Freeze all foreclosures for 5 years or for the duration of the world economic crisis. Now, that has to be supplemented with a couple of other things. The law we're looking at is the Frazier-Lemke Act. Frazier-Lemke, I write about it on Tarpley.net. Frazier-Lemke, 1935, was a 3-year delay in foreclosures. 3 years in that depression. This depression is worse, and we have the extra added layer of securitization and fraud and MERS and all this stuff. Frazier-Lemke says 3 years. This mainly applied to farms in those days, right? But we can extend it very easily. The principle is the same thing. Frazier-Lemke says you get a 3-year delay on any foreclosure if you can get any court to approve a plan where you'll be paying something and a couple of other formalities. But any court at any level, and then you're not going to get thrown out. Now, that's got to be supplemented. You need compulsory mediation. Now, this is interestingly enough, this is in the Washington Post of today. We have none other than Ezra Klein, and otherwise a column which doesn't really have much merit. Mandatory mediation. Mandatory mediation. It would force the banks to sit down with the homeowners, look through the papers, consider the specifics in the presence of a judge, and make a good faith effort to figure out a way forward. This has been successful in Philadelphia. Well, it was successful in the Great Depression, the first Great Depression. Many states enacted mandatory mediation. And the third one is you need your Homeowners Loan Corporation, HOLC. That means you can lower the interest rates, you can refinance the mortgage, reduce the principal, and so forth, and save what can be saved for the lender. But the main thing is people don't get thrown out on the street. By the way, this Ezra Klein column, with the change in approach, housing crisis can be eased. He's writing about the Home Affordable Modification Program, HAMP, HAMP. So HAMP is the Obama program. It's voluntary. They renegotiate. It's a failure because it's voluntary. There's no compulsion for banks, no incentive for banks to do this. Then we have the cram down, he writes about, right? This was talked about, that you've got to reduce the principal. Well, that's fine, but that's also completely voluntary, and it's a failure. It just hasn't gotten anywhere. Then we have the third point, mandatory mediation, and he's got a couple of other things. But the program we need is the 5-year freeze. We need mandatory compulsory mediation in the presence of a judge. And we need Homeowners Loan Corporation using 1% federal credit, right? Borrow from the Fed at 0% and lend that out at 1%. That's a reasonable cost for administering the loan, and you will have some defaults and whatever. So 1% or 2% can go for that. And then you have solved the crisis. Now, in the meantime, and over the 5 years, you've got to have an economic recovery, for which I can't go through all the details of that, but the 5-point program sitting up there right at the top of Tarpley.net. It's the first thing you see when you load the website. 5-point program, how to end the Depression, how to create 30 million new high-wage productive jobs, building infrastructure and real production, 3 science drivers, and related issues. So that's the mortgage picture. Remember, a judge that allows these things to go forward is guilty of a misprision of a felony. They deserve to be impeached, jailed, voted out. Whatever you do with judges in your state, stop foreclosures. We'll be back in a minute.